All right, here we are for our second video, and this time we are going to go do a page through or a flip through of pages of old school essentials. Josh, are you aware of what old school essentials is, or how much do you know about it?
Yes, it is a modernized version of the Beckme system
No,
from
not
the
not Beck Me.
80s.
Close, close. It's actually so this predates Beck Me. So for those who aren't aware, this is basically a redo, an exact faithful redo of the 1981 basic Dungeons and Dragons uh, version of the game. So the basic and expert, which came out in 1981, and it was distinguished from advanced Dungeons and Dragons. There were kind of two different product lines. And the reason for that was Dave Arneson, the co-creator of Dungeons and Dragons, basically had won in court that TSR needed to keep producing the basic version of the game, which he had helped create. And so the BX version was kind of like a continuation or building upon the the Holmes basic set and some of the really early official, sorry, not official, original D&D. So uh, the basic expert or BX in 1981 is kind of a much beloved version of the game, and old school essentials is very very popular, basically restatement of the rules. So what now it's the exact same game, but the rules are done up in a way that is a lot more helpful for a DM, and it's very very well organized, and it's in a nice really sharp looking digest size book, which I happen to really like. And we're going to be looking at the classic fantasy version of the game. That means this is exactly the that 1981 version of the game, right? There's also an advanced fantasy version, but that's kind of a different game. It's like expanding upon the basic expert by pulling in some um, aspects of AD&D. Cool. Well, anyway, what do you think about the cover, bud?
Very well done art, in my opinion. Got that great nostalgic feel from what you'd expect from the old TSR age.
Yeah, I love this cover. I just love it. I think it's great. The colors, the green and the purple and the red with this familiar, or I think it's a homunculus, which is kind of like a wizard's assistant. Um, it's just looks awesome. That's why I got this version of the cover. I just really really liked it. There was another version that was like it showed, I don't know, it was like a Peter Mullen art, but I didn't quite like it as much. So I just didn't want to. And in the third printing, I didn't really like it that much. This is the second printing. It's cool. So anyway, let's take a dive in and have a look at what this game offers. So here's the table of contents. It just kind of lays out some basic terms and what this book represents, what it is entails. What that is compatible with the old modules. So you can actually use this game to directly play all the different modules that TSR came out with back in the day. Um, and then, it goes through some different things about character creation, how to advance in levels, things like that, equipment, magic spells, and then, of course, retainers and things like that. So we're going to kind of flip through. Let me just go ahead and, you know, pass through some of these. It gives some good terminology, but not too much. Doesn't belabor the point because kind of assumes that you know a little bit about it, um, or at least enough that you're not totally lost. But even if this was your first um, exposure to the game, I mean, I think you would be able to navigate pretty easily. What do you
Yeah, it's
think,
an
bud?
easy follow, easy read.
Yeah, totally. Well, I like this little thing. Does this, have you ever seen anything like this before?
Oh yeah, that's the if I remember right, that's the first edition cover.
Yeah, that's right. So that's the cover of the very first edition or first printing of the player's handbook. There was a like a statue like that, and they were pulling the eye out of it, and so it's kind of a homage to that, which is kind of interesting. Lots of fun. All right, this kind of says, hey, look, this is basically all the rules in one book, right? So you can get it separately with rules modules and little booklets, and you can actually buy it in really nice box sets. But this is the everything in under one cover. It happened to be what was available at the time that I made my purchase, and I am not regretful. I think the one volume it works pretty good. Um, I I really would like to get the box sets because they're just really beautiful, but at the same time, it's like, do I really want to spend $140 on, games that I already own? And you know, so I don't know. I don't know, but more money out of your college fund. Okay, so check this out. Compatibility. So this is where it says, hey, you can play this with this is 100% faithful restatement of those old-fashioned rules, the basic expert. So you can go ahead and play this with all the modules, etc. And then it's got some art here, which whatever. But it's not really my favorite art in the book. But we had already talked a little bit in our first video about some of the inconsistencies of the art in the book, but that's fine. All right, so talks about how you make a character. All right, well, let's go into the character creation. I mean, with BX, what you're supposed to do in this game, this is old school playing, right? So what you do is you're supposed to roll 3d6 down the line and then choose your class. So you don't go in thinking, oh, I'm going to be a magic user, or yeah, I'm going to be a fighter or something. No, you roll your 3d6 and then you see what you get, and based on that, you choose. How do you feel about that, bud?
I think personally, it depends on the person playing because sometimes, you kind of want to play this kind of character, but then, stats don't line up, and then you might end up picking a class that's like, oh boy, I want it to be, barbarian. No, I'm the magic user. And it
Yeah,
gets all improvisation, and hopefully you'll be able to adapt to that.
yeah. It's you have to be open to that kind of method of play, right? I mean, you have to be okay with that, and not every player will be, and not every uh, game table is going to, be cool with that. But me personally, I'm kind of at a point where like I think that would be a fun way to play. Just like roll up whatever I get, and I'll just play that out. We'll just go with it. But yeah, I'm not. I totally get though that someone might have some reservations about that. So, but those are the rules as they were back in the day. Okay. Also, this version of the game does use THACO. This is old school, right? So what is THACO? That is an acronym meaning to hit armor class 0 because they used attack matrices to determine the number that you needed to roll to hit the monster or whoever you're fighting, right? And also, THAC0 is based on the idea of a descending armor class. So the lower your armor class, the better off you were. All right, cool. So now that's not to say that you have to use THAC0 to play Old School Essentials, because what Gavin Norman, the guy who wrote Old School Essentials, did was he made it so that you could use ascending armor class, which is what kind of the newer gamers have been using since third edition. But that's a Wizards of the Coast innovation. But I like THAC0. I just think it's fun. It's kind of old school, and I think it's cool. I like it. What do you think about descending armor class, bud?
Personally,
Yeah.
I find that I don't really have a much of an opinion on whether you use ascending or descending armor class. I find that as long as it's fun for everyone and you're able to keep track easy, just go for it.
I wonder if I can get 2 pages on one thing. Should I try that? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, that was a little bit. There we go. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I like it, but okay, here we are at the ability scores. Um, we got our basic six, right? I don't think this has changed in all the editions of Dungeons and Dragons. Although I think that in Unearthed Arcana, so like kind of later on in first edition, Gary Gygax did add like another ability score in there.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Um,
sure it was like to determine physical attractiveness.
yeah, yeah, but most people are like not interested in adding it into their game. I don't know that Unearthed Arcana was not really widely received well with
Ye-
everything in there. I mean, some stuff was good, they say, and others not great. But so here's some of the modifiers you get on these. So you're not super duper powerful in Old School Essentials. You're scraping by. You're in a dungeon crawl experience. You're trying to uh, survive the dungeon experience and get out with as much gold as you can. And also, we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but I mean, uh, your everything you carry counts towards encumbrance. You have to track encumbrance. It's a very resource management based game. It is very much tedious in the way that you have to keep track of your time in the dungeon. You have to rest at certain intervals. You have to make sure that your torches aren't burning out, things like that, and that you have enough rations, and that you're not becoming encumbered with all of the things that you're carrying, because everything that you're carrying weighs a certain amount of coins. Everything is weighed in coins, just for convenience, which people might think that's weird, but it's actually a useful measurement in the game. But anyway, strength modifiers doesn't, it gives you, all right, so it gives you some melee bonuses, and it also gives you, it might give you some bonuses here in being able to open doors. And why would that be important, do you think, bud?
Doors stuck.
Yeah, stuck doors. That's the thing. Because in dungeons, the doors are almost always stuck, so that they're hard to open, and you have to find some kind of means to open the doors. So um, that's how that comes into play. All right, and then with intelligence modifiers, this is the prime requisite for a magic user, and it's kind of about basically knowing additional languages. Uh, and then we have these other modifiers. Now it's interesting that the charisma modifier is actually quite vital in this game, because it can impact highly the number of retainers that you can have. What's a retainer? Well, a retainer is a hired hand that can help you in a dungeon, right? So you have more bodies, more people able to help you, slay monsters or get through your combat situations and basically help you survive. So charisma is not to be forgotten. Well, any thoughts on any of that stuff, bud?
Attributes are important. Never forget them.
All right. So with the alignment, there's three in basic expert, right? The basic Dungeons and Dragons, it always had three. Um, Gary Gygax, he made it like a 9 point system, with like lawful evil or whatever. Like basically um, made it into a more matrix style of alignment. But here, I like to think of these three as good, selfish, evil. And I think there's some justification in it. That's how I like to play it, for one thing, um, because I mean, that's just kind of how I think in those terms. But also, um, I think there is some justification for that. Um, they the lawful players will sacrifice for greater good. Um, the neutral characters tend to do what will serve themselves, that i.e. they are selfish, right? And the chaos are, you know, utterly selfish, right? Or they're just bad guys, right? It's all there's nothing redeeming about them. What are your thoughts, buddy? Do you like the three alignment system, or you kind of gravitate
Three
towards?
alignments really allow you to kind of give more loose. It's kind of like a much more loose interpretation of alignments, since it allows you to really garner into a whole bunch of factors. A lawful character is not just, Superman now. A lawful character is can be signed into many more different types of
Right,
ideas and characters than just
could also be
Superman
Batman.
archetypes.
Like Batman would be a lawful character, right?
Yeah.
But they're pretty different personalities. Yeah. Well, and I've also heard the argument that like when you have more alignments, it actually makes it a little more restrictive in a way, because it's kind of like the idea of like having skills on your character sheet doesn't necessarily make you feel freer to do more things. It actually makes you feel constrained that, oh, I can only do this or this. You know what I mean? Um, Whereas, like, if you don't have all those skills, your character is kind of open to be able to do whatever your mind comes up with for the occasion, right? So there's also languages. It gives some. I think these are like suggested languages. Where does it say that? I don't remember, but it says at the referee's discretion, following languages are common and may be chosen by player characters. Yeah, okay. Well, um, there's also such a thing as alignment languages. Now, this is kind of a bit of a weird concept. It is like totally just a game mechanic concept. You kind of have to shelve it aside as, okay, well, this is a game mechanic, so we'll just kind of use it for what it is. But what this is basically, if you're of the same alignment as someone, then a secret code language of words or gestures and whatever, where you can communicate and with them, and people outside of that alignment won't know what you're talking about. So it's kind of like, wink winks, nudge nudges, and I don't know. I mean, I guess it's kind of conceivable in a way, because like if you think about it, like where we go to church, bud, like there's a lot of jargon and stuff that people outside of our religious tradition would have a really hard time understanding what we're talking about. You know what I mean? So maybe you could consider that, like look at that as sort of in the vein of an alignment language. Someone who is outside of that tradition, they're not going to understand what we're talking about, but we could talk freely um, about that kind of thing, but they would just be clueless.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that's weird, and it kind of is, it really is, but whatever. Um, and it's something I kind of forget about, honestly. But I guess if a person wanted to use that, I wouldn't be able to really prevent them. Um, all right, anyway, so here's the character classes. Now this game has got like, gosh, it's like 7 or 9 classes. And here's the thing: in old school essentials or in basic expert, the thing about it is it's all race as class. So there is no such thing as um, a halfling mage or a dwarf cleric or anything like that. You're a dwarf, and dwarfs do dwarf things. An elf is an elf, and they do things that elves do. And if you're a one of these other classes, like this is a human class, right? You're a cleric, then that means you're a human by default. What are your thoughts on that, buddy?
Um, Once again, I like to go with the sort of the both is good sort of mindset. I think that if you want to be like specify in as like a dwarf or an elf or a half orc or a gnome or something, and it's like go for that because if you don't want to be like restricted to a specific class and to a possibly lower max level, then that's absolutely something you should go for.
Yeah, because well, that's the thing, right? Because these demi-human races or classes, they cap out at their experience a lot sooner than the humans can, and that it's causes a really interesting balancing effect in the game. It's very intentional. The human classes aren't really quite as powerful in the beginning stages, but they, as over time, they level up and can, surpass the other demi-human classes. So you kind of make a decision about, what kind of character arc you want. What do you think of a cleric as a character? And this is as old as it gets, really, as far as classes.
Well,
Right
clerics
back
are
to
definitely not
original.
my favorite class. They're definitely a class I want on my party.
Mm.
Uh, so definitely important, but would not be my first choice. I prefer either magic users or frontliners.
Uh-huh. And a cleric is neither one. Well, I mean, they're kind of, yeah, they're neither one. They're a halfway point, and that was originally the purpose of them, right? They were going to be a halfway point between um, a fighter and a mage, which were like the only three classes in the original Dungeons and Dragons. So here's kind of an example of what you get in uh, on your character's page. So it really it's for each class it's 2 pages, right? So here's your cleric, page 1, page 2, and that's it. And then you're on to the next class, and it gives your level progression, how much XP you need, how many hit dice you have at each level, what your THACO is. In other words, what number you need to hit a monster of a 0 armor class. So when your THACO number goes down, that means you have a higher likelihood of being able to hit them. And then, of course, in BX, we have like 5 different saving throws, and they're kind of funny because There originally it was death ray and poison, right? And wands is you have a saving throw particularly against wands. And then the other one, the P is paralysis or petrification. And then B is breath attacks, so particularly like dragon breath. But other things might fall in that category. And then you have spells, rods, staves. So it's kind of funny, because you have all these varied saving throws, whereas older Dungeons and Dragons, I think it was just a single savings throw. I'm pretty sure that's what Swords and Wizardry had, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's different. What do you think about this?
Hmm. It can be pretty helpful with just keeping track of things. I think at least it's easier for me to remember than the sort of fifth edition way of like dexterity save, intelligence save, using the six stats as the saving throws instead of the roll higher than this number
Yeah.
type thing. I mean, it gives it a bit of simplicity, and I like it.
Yeah, well, having a single saving throw would certainly be simpler, you know. I kind of like this. I mean, it's another thing that's kind of quirky that I like again about the game, but also like, you might have a particular hardiness towards poison or something like that, but not so against, you know, certain spells or something. You know what I mean? So I can see utility in that. It was just kind of funny when I read about these the first time. It was like Death Ray. It sounded so like science fictiony, But basically,
Yeah,
this is like any save against like automatic death, essentially. Um, yeah. Anyway, and the clerics do not get any spells in their first level. I don't know. I think fifth edition is a lot more relaxed on that, but this is old school, baby. So you have to basically go through your first level as an acolyte and um, work your way up to the spiritual power of having any religious spells in your second level. So, and I kind of like it. Like with each class, it says, oh, when you reach this certain level, then you can, you know, establish a stronghold and you're going to be known as a this or that. I think because of copyright and stuff, old school essentials could not use the level titles that BX used or Dungeons and Dragons originally used. So level one you're an acolyte, and level two whatever, and then I think you ended up being a patriarch at the end for a cleric. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it does give some suggested names, I think, of what you could call yourself. But
yeah,
yeah. Anyway, let's move on. So the dwarf, they've got, they're kind of hardier. Um, they've got really, really good saving throws. Like, look how low these numbers are. So
yeah.
dwarves
They're
are,
they're built to be tough.
yeah, they are. And but then, like, I mean, they cap out at level 12, and then you're done, right? That's you're not
But at
gonna
that
get
point,
any better.
you're rolling
So
very low on your saving throws.
yeah, holy moly, good point. Yeah, that is wow, amazing. All right, and then you got the elf, and they're kind of like they're your magic user slash fighter, right? So if you want to
Yeah,
play like a magic user fighter, be an elf, right? Because that's
or
what they
like a
are.
or like a spell casting archer type character with a bit more of an edge than a ranger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, because you can't, there's not really like a ranger option in classic fantasy old school essentials or BX.
Yeah.
So,
At least not in the rules tome.
yeah. So a dwarf, they're like a straight up fighter, they're just kind of the hardy fighter. Elf, they're kind of like a magic user fighter. And speaking of fighters, here's the fighter. Fighter. I always thought fighter was so general. I'm surprised that that term is like existed this long, because it always seems like a category to me. You know what I mean? A fighter, and then you might have a man at arms or whatever, um, a barbarian or things like that. But fighter is it's to this day is just kind of its own class, and it really was one of the original. You had a fighter, you had a magic user, you had a cleric, and that was, you know, your choices. But yeah, I mean, you can't do without them, can you?
No,
Everybody
they
seems to
may
like to
seem
play
boring, but they're
one.
the most important.
Yeah, and well, I think everyone likes to play them. Or at least I don't know. I mean, everyone wants to be the guy that has the sword. I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, they're pretty one dimensional though. You're right. There's not much to them. I mean, they just hack and slash, hack and slash, hack and slash, kill all the orcs. Make it
That's what
kind
that's what makes
of
them that's what
yeah,
makes them popular to play.
yeah, yeah. They're cool. What do you think of halflings?
Um, Good for sneaking.
Yeah, really good for sneaking. Make, but you can't have a halfling thief, not in BX, right? So you're just a halfling. So, I mean, you can do thiefy things. Um, you can listen at doors. You have an initiative bonus. You can hide, stuff like that. Um, at a certain
Yeah.
level, you become a sheriff of a shire, which is actually where the word sheriff comes from. It's the leader of a shire.
Actually,
So,
the stronghold allows you starts at first level just as long as you have the funds for it.
oh yeah,
That's probably why their level cap is so low. So they like get all this ability.
yeah. So if you Bilbo Baggins that thing all the way to town, you could be sheriff pretty quick if you get Smog's fortune. Anyway, speaking of that, this really is a Hobbit. In the um, tradition of Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, right? They just couldn't call it a Hobbit because I guess that was trademark term with the Tolkien estate. So, so they call it a halfling, but really that's what it is, right? So, but yeah, uh, you can only go up to level 8 with the halfling.
Still get
So
very good saving throws.
yeah, they do. So, if that's what you're into, then cool. Or if you roll 3d6 down the line and you end up with a halfling, try it out. Um, what do you think of the picture with the guy he's eating with this little knife?
Very halfling-like.
Yeah, kind of is, huh? It's funny. Like it. And then we got the magic user. So um, here is Satan. Uh, yeah, that's funny. Anyway, it, you can't really see it, but this is the actual magic user, and this is just kind of his arcane library. I don't know, it's a weird statue there or something, but yeah. So I mean, basically, at your level 1, you are very vulnerable. You get one spell, one spell that you can use once a day, right? And you have 1d4 hit dice, so you could have a maximum of 4 hit dice. That's at your very luckiest. So that's kind of, you certainly want retainers, or at least you want to be in a party who, there's some good fighters that you're going to be hiding behind in those early levels, because it's a little perilous. But what do you
But if
think
he can
about?
survive, then you basically own reality.
Yeah. Now, one thing I don't like about magic users is like the justification of magic users as, oh, they forget how to do magic when they cast the spell, and then they have to study magic again to learn how to do it again. It was basically the justification. I don't like that at all. Like I do understand that the you can cast your spell once a day thing is like a game mechanic to retain balance in the game so that you're not too overpowered. But the thing is, I just don't like the justification behind it of like, oh yeah, you forget how to cast and you have to study your books again. No, I don't like that at all. I would come up with something different if I were the game masters and say like, your magical energies can only be expended once a day or something like that. You know what I mean? Something like that. Um, Besides this, oh yeah, you forget how to do magic. I always thought that was so dumb. But yeah, that's that's a big problem. Plus, another thing about it is there's no there's no chance of failure when you cast a spell unless you're interrupted like by someone trying to attack you. Your spell is 100% guaranteed to fire off okay, but that's not, if this is supposed to be a very complex thing that requires high intelligence to perform, the chance of screwing it up has got to be, very high. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I kind of like the idea of like roll the cast as possibly miscasting magic and causing some kind of problem. So Dungeon Crawl Classics does that, but I think they kind of gone to overkill in that because you have like different spell effects for like every spell. And I think that's why their books are so huge. But I think just a general table of like, hey, here's a wild magic table if you miscast your magic or something like that is fine. But anyway, if you're playing strict by the rules, none of that matters. You're not going to be using any of those rules. But if you wanted to kind of homebrew some stuff, those are some things to consider. Then the thief, the most hopeless class in the game. I
one
want to
that
love,
requires you to really fix it.
yeah, want to love the thief class, but they're so hamstrung in this version of the game. It's really hard because they're as weak as the magic users for hit dice, and they've got these cool thief skills, right? Climb sheer
They don't really get to
surfaces and
use any
stuff
of
like
them.
that. Yeah, but the thing is, like, their chance of success on these thief skills are so incredibly low in some instances. Like, let's see, level one, you have a 10% chance of TR, which is removing traps, finding or removing traps, like 10% chance. Um, what's HS? Hide in shadows. You got a 10% chance. Like you might as well not even try that. But you know what I mean? Like, but then at the same time, you can climb sheer surfaces with 87% proficiency at level one. And then you come into some issues like, well, what's a sheer surface? You know, is that like
Spider-Man,
yeah,
Spider-Man.
yeah, exactly, which is silly. But
What, have you never wanted to be a 1960s cartoon Spider-Man D&D game?
yeah. So anyway, the thief class has been notoriously broken, and
Reworked.
so yeah, well, I mean, you could play it as it is, but it's a hard one to do because it's just so disadvantaged. I think you know hopefully Greg Gillespie fixes the thief class in his upcoming Dragon Slayer game. Um, all right, cool. So here's some advancement. Talks about how you get experience. Now in old BX, how you get experience? You get experience with gold. That's how you gain experience. And you also gain experience by killing monsters, but mostly it's gold. And so that probably seems really weird to a lot of modern players today. Um, but it really changes your entire goals in how you play and what you're doing when you play and just what you're doing in the game. Um, and so it kind of gives meaning to the entire dungeon crawl experience, um, because you're down there trying to basically make your fortune. That's why you're risking it going down in there into like almost certain death. You're looking to make it big. Oh, here's your level titles. So these are the you know, suggested level titles. Some of them are the same. It's not a complete list, and it doesn't tell you which levels you should have which title. It just says, the following list may be used as inspiration. It says so. I really think it's like a copyright reason that they didn't do it like they had in the old game, but it's all laid out for you in the original manuals of BX. So, so what do you think of the gold equals experience points?
I think when it comes to the idea of looking for treasure specifically and trying to make money, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally. Like at first I thought, oh man, that is so weird. I'm gonna I'm gonna change that in my homebrew game. I don't think that's a good way to do the game. But the more I read about it, the more it just made complete sense, and it makes for a certain type of game experience. So you're in there for that dungeon crawl. You're trying to get that gold, and that's how you advance in the game. And fighting monsters is not beneficial to you. That drains resources, right? Drains your hit points. You're going to be losing arrows and things like that. You're going to be, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to do that. So you're going to want to try to find as many alternate means you can to try and escape those situations. Um, and so it makes it the resource management game that has been lost with time in these more modern editions. Like people don't really understand what old Dungeons and Dragons was. You know,
Yeah,
it was
because old D&D is a lot more about survival and sneaking around and avoiding things and collecting as much as you can to get out as quietly as you can.
yeah, and new D&D is like fifth edition is like, hey, you're a superhero, you're a Dragonborn paladin. Oh yeah, I'm super cool, Dragonborn paladin. So yeah, anyway, I'll never get sick of making fun of those fifth edition kids who want to be a Dragonborn paladin. But anyway, so this is like what happens if you reach that maximum level. It looks like the game here gives you some tips on what to do if you want to play beyond level 14. So this is actually kind of going beyond what the original scope of BX was, right? Because Basic Expert um, Mold Bay edition, what this is based on, stopped at level 14. It was going to keep going, but they actually like rebranded and came out with like a new version of the basic game and started over again in 1983. So that's where BECMI came from: Basic Expert Companion Master Immortal. So they kind of had different modules of the game as you went up in level. But yeah, so I mean, but if you buy old school essentials, I mean, you kind of have you know a little bit of a framework where you can expand beyond the level 14 if you want to. So it gives you some context in how to do that, which is really helpful, I think, if you're interested in that.
Yeah,
Kind of anticipates that kind of thing, whereas in the early game, not really, right? So this is cool. This is you have platinum pieces, you have gold pieces, which is really kind of the standard coin. Uh, Electrum pieces, that's a mixture of gold and silver pieces, and copper pieces, and it kind of just shows the value, the exchange rate. That is a fixed rate, so that's good to have. Um, what your character starts out in. Oops. What hirelings. So um, you know, who you can hire, what types of hirelings you can have, that kind of thing. So that's where the game really kind of gets into some interesting stuff because you can buy, well, you can hire people to help you in your game. So here we're getting into equipment. So there's lots of interesting equipment you'll want to take along in a dungeon crawl. You might want to take a crowbar. You'll want rope. You'll want, torches, definitely. Um, Lanterns and oil, and you can actually use the oil to set fire to. You can buy a flask of oil and you can use it as a flammable item to set fire to a creature or something like that if you want to. So you can get pretty creative about this kind of things that you would do. Of course, a holy symbol is for a cleric. Ooh, I don't know what I clicked there, buddy. Yeah, there we go. That's a cool picture, huh? Just kind of shows the dungeon crawl situation
Yeah.
going down by rope. And so, you've got rations, standard and iron rations, I guess. I don't know, some differences in that. Then you have your weapons and armor. And of course, it shows the weight in coins, right? So why weight in coins?
You're going to be
Well,
carrying a lot of coins.
yeah, exactly. So you're going to be carrying coins. So you want to know how much you can carry. And if you, um, so by having everything basically weighted out in coins. You don't have to convert anything to and from pounds. You can just be like, oh, I've got 500 coins, so that weighs 500 coins. And then I've got this and that weapon and this and that, and those weigh this many coins and that many coins, and that's the maximum I can carry. And so, oops, I clicked on encumbrance, and it brought me here. Um, I got to be careful with these hyperlinks, buddy. Give me a sec. Try and get back where it was. Oh, there we go. Okay, so yeah, so anyway, yeah, encumbrance. I mean, there's a couple different ways you can do encumbrance, and this is when you're carrying too much, right? It's going to slow down your movement. And so that's another part of the resource management because it's like, hey, I want to have as much experience points as I can, right? But if I try and carry too much stuff, I can't hardly move. And so you really have to make a trade-off of like, well, do I really need to carry this second sword? You know, because maybe I should just bring gold back with me and try and get more experience. You know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
some decision making involved there. Cool. So here's your weapons and so vehicles and mounts. Now, one thing I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just me. It gives some pretty cool like sea vessel combat damage rules and stuff like that. But as far as like travel via horse, it doesn't give you a lot of guidance about that. Maybe I just missed it in my reading. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm not really too clear on that stuff. So it does give some stats for different animals that you would ride. So that's good. But as far as like, your rate of travel or I don't know, maybe I missed it somewhere. But yeah, because it would have to be advantageous to have a horse, travel by horse,
Yeah.
rather than just walking everywhere. Yeah, so anyway, there's boats and stuff if you do water adventures and things like that. There's rules, ready-made rules for all that. The game really does anticipate a lot of different situations and things like that. So you would be surprised. It's pretty comprehensive just for being one little book. Um, so here's your magic section. You've got your spells. It's split into different types of magic. You've got arcane magic, which is wizard magic. And there's also a divine magic, which is your cleric magic, right? Um, there's different terms and stuff. This harkens back to really original D&D, like a frog temple and stuff like that. But like a super early module of the game, I'm pretty sure. Um, yeah, so these are talking about the different types of magic, arcane, divine, how they work, you know. And the thing about old school essentials, it really is good because like everything is laid out in a very intuitive way. Everything's all together in the place you would expect it. So that's good, you know. It's very good for that. That looks like the Necronomicon from that movie with the Army of Darkness. I don't think you've seen that, but
Yeah, I
that's
don't
kind
think
of
I
a
have.
classic. Yeah, maybe we'll watch it someday. You'd probably like it.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a comedy adventure game movie, but yeah. So you can learn new spells in magical research. You can even create new spells. Like the game allows you to do that, which is cool. Um, There's a cleric. He's Friar Tuck. You know,
Hmm.
it's kind of weird because he's chosen with a sword, which is not accurate to the game because clerics cannot use bladed weapons. So you know that's kind of and the saint whoever he's praying beside has a sword, which is also not accurate to the game, which is kind of bothers me. You know, like when you're doing a cleric, like if the game doesn't allow clerics to have bladed weapons, then don't show it. You know, I don't know, that kind of thing bugs me, but it's a cool picture all the same.
Yeah, would have been better for a paladin.
Yeah, yeah, and clerics, you know, probably can be kind of like, you know, kind of a lame-o guy with a friar tuck look, you know.
Hmm.
um, Even though I would like to play clerics, I think they'd be fun. But anyway, yeah. So here's the cleric spells. That's a cool picture, man. I like that. And then here's your magic user spell list. There's a lot more spells for a magic user or an arcane spellcaster than a cleric. But that stands to reason because this is, you know, not the only thing a cleric can do. They're also a competent fighter. But the magic user, this is their kind of a one trick pony. This is all they can do is cast spells.
Yeah, that
And
is their fighting.
yeah, that is their whole thing. And I guess one trick pony isn't really a good way to describe it because I mean, with the variety of the spells that they have, there really is a lot there that can really diversify everything that they do. So there's a lot in their repertoire.
Yes, such as Fireball, the only spell you'll really need.
Yeah, the only spell. Yeah, this is I mean this is nice art. It's not really, I don't know. It's a nice painting, but it doesn't really scream wow, Dungeons and Dragons adventure to me. I don't know. What do you think?
Um, Looks like an oil painting to me. Kind of like got hag vibes almost.
Yeah, to me she looks like an old halfling or something. I don't know. And then like what's the ghost trying to pat her on the back? Like what's going on? I don't even understand. It's coming out of her lantern. Anyway, whatever. Um, so list of cleric spells. We'll just kind of breeze past a lot of this. I mean, they're great spells: curing wounds, detecting evil, um, you know, protection from evil, stuff like that. Useful stuff: resisting cold, um, speaking with animals could be useful if you're trying to figure out a mystery or something. Silence will make it so that magic users can't cast a spell. Um, and yeah, so that's Actually, the guy who did the cover of this book, he also did this black and white right here. It's page one, page two, right, like that.
Oh yeah.
And looks like that guy's turning some undead. Although I don't know what kind of undead those would be, but kind of look like the Swamp Thing. But maybe they're maybe they're some kind of creature from the grave. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of cool. I'll just kind of breeze past it. Um, and here's your magic user spells, and charm persons are super useful spell to have in your first level, you know. And the light spell in this game, like it probably seems super lame to modern players, but the light spell actually that's really useful. Like because if you have to rely on torches um, in a dungeon, it is very useful. It kind of takes some stress off of the resource management in a big way, and also you can use it to blind um, creatures as well if you cast it. Um, you know, at that moment you can blind, which is really cool.
It, it would probably might even have a longer lasting blinding effect if you like blinded them in a dark area.
Yeah, well, it's got rules pertaining to how it works with the blindness, but in this game, if you're blind, you cannot attack. A blind creature cannot attack. So if you blind them, they're out. You know, if they don't make their saving throw, they are. I mean, they're. This is a useful spell, light. So anyway, something
Debilitating
to think
too.
about. Yeah. So there's lots of cool spells. It's pretty fun. Um, all right, let's breeze on through because there's a lot of book to go through here. Um, all right. Yeah, you can also there's a reincarnation spell or something like that. Yeah, and a resurrection spell. So you can reincarnate as some kind of weird person or animal or something like that, or a gnoll. You know, a minotaur. That's what happened to this. Or sorry, no, he's a centaur. But yeah, anyway, um, that's an interesting picture. Cool. So this kind of gives you some tips on your adventuring. You're supposed to have a guy who calls the shots, they're a caller. And then you're actually supposed to have someone who's mapping out the dungeon as you go. Now, we haven't done that as in any of our adventures that we played in the past, um, but what do you think about that as like a game mechanic? Like if we just
Kind of
had you
interesting.
map as you go, and I didn't draw the map out, or I don't know. I mean, I'm not quite sure how you would do that if you're using miniatures, but yeah, anyway,
That seems like it could be like
interesting
a
way to play because
cool
then
game mechanic.
yeah, it
And
puts
like
a
with a bit of like a role play, more focused campaign, it'd kind of be like having a leader guy and his like second first mate.
yeah, that's right. And it puts a lot of the onus on the players to know where they are in the dungeon. Because if you get lost, you had better have your map done well. You know what I mean? And so that kind of puts a bit of a puts some stakes in the game. This kind of looks like an evil tower.
Yeah.
Well, that must be where the good guys live. Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is the time weight movement. So I mean, you got to track time, and it talks about weight is coins, which we did talk about already. It talks about rounds and turns, and a turn is 10 minutes, a round is 10 seconds, and how that works in combat. I think I just accidentally clicked again. Crap. Um, let's see where we were. Yeah, okay, here we are. So, um, yeah, and then you have movement rates, and that depends on encumbrance and stuff like that. And what your distance you're moving and stuff like that is different when you're in the wilderness or when you're in a dungeon. So it really depends on the context of where your characters are. Um, there's a couple different ways to do encumbrance because if you are doing detailed encumbrance, that's you track every coin, every thing you carry, every sword, everything is tracked in coins. So it's a little bit of you know meticulous record keeping, but it's part of the game. And then some rules about healing and like not just it's not just a long rest and you're okay. you know I think there's a rate at which you will gain your hit points back. And then
Yeah,
it
you gotta go through the grid of it and pull out the arrows.
yeah. And then, like I said, the game is comprehensive, like it has rules about a lot of different things. Climbing, darkness, what you can do and falling damage and when you get lost and if your characters are starving and they're not feeding them. Um, Swimming and, wandering monsters. This is a big thing in the game because when you're in a dungeon or if you're doing a wilderness adventure, you have to roll for the chance of wandering monsters at specific intervals. So it is very much like a it's almost like board gamey in that way, because you go through these steps of the game, and it's not all by game master fiat. You have to actually go through these cycles of gameplay, and you're subject to the rolls, like whether there's going to be a wandering monster or not. But it's pretty well organized because it's not like you're going to, just run into a dungeon or sorry, a dragon in level one of a dungeon, because it has it organized about, what sort of monsters you're going to run into in what sort of environment. So it's laid out pretty well. So, speaking of dungeons, here's the dungeon stuff. There's a whole section about doors and secret doors, locked doors, stuck doors. That's all important stuff. Here's your
How the barbarian
sequence.
opens a door.
Yep. Kicking it. um, there's your strength modifier. Um, yeah, but here's your sequence of play per turn in a dungeon, right? So you roll for wandering monsters, and then you have actions, and then you know just a description, and then end of turn, and you have to rest at the end of that cycle because it's a very intensive situation going through a dungeon, right? So that's how you treat it. So it kind of goes through each all these steps and tells you what's involved. And same thing for wilderness, and it's all laid out really well and handy for you. It's all on like 2 pages. Wilderness is right behind it. Um, Tells you all the details that you need to know. Really handy. This old school essentials is just revolutionary at how it is laid out. A lot of people are emulating the great stuff that Gavin Norman has done in making the game as well laid out as that he has. Here's if you're having a waterborne adventure, if you're on a ship or something, different rules and things to consider. Here's an encounter so if you have an encounter with a monster, how does it work? What do you do? Um, you roll for surprise. You've got an encounter distance. How far away are they? Then you roll for initiative. And then you've got actions. And I think the initiative in this game is it's like what do you call it? Where like your whole party rolls for initiative, and then the bad guys
Group
roll, and you
initiative.
take a turn. Group initiative, yeah. I think that's how it is, but it's an optional rule to roll individual initiative. So individual initiative is like by far, I think, uh, the more realistic one, but it's super intensive to try to do because you have to roll that out every for for all the people involved, and if you have retainers and if there's a whole bunch of goblins, you're rolling for every goblin, and you know what I mean. It's a lot, so that's why I've been trying to come up with ways to make it fun, and I've kind of come up with an idea of having like a bingo ball thing that you roll out, and it'll just kind of kick out the numbers, and like you'll have a number assigned to every person, every monster, and every player character, and then it'll just roll it out, and then you in the order that it comes out, you just line them up, and there's your initiative. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun. Cool. Anyway, so this is so your actions during combat. You can run away, evasion, and pursuit when they chase you. Um, it's a waterborne evasion and pursuit. Look at this picture. This is fun, isn't it? This is the same guy that did the cover page.
Yeah.
Stefan Pogue, I think. This guy looks like a Hulk Hogan He-Man, you know, barbarian type. And
Yeah.
these look like what do you call them?
Imps.
Yeah, little imps, or yeah, exactly. They're kind of reminiscent of those sturges too, like those giant mosquito things. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great picture. It's fun. And then what? How do you do combat, right? So when you're actually in a fight, how does that work? You know, rolling initiative. Yeah, each side you roll, and that's the fastest way to do it for sure, right? But if you want to do individual initiative, then maybe that bingo ball thing is a good idea. Missile attacks, spell casting. So there's a sequence. Everything is laid out very well for you in a you know organized manner. It's very good. So morale. This is interesting because here you could have a situation where you kill some of those guys, some of the bad guys, and they decide they don't want to fight anymore because you killed their leader or something. So there are certain points in which you will re-roll morale for the monsters, right? I think when to check morale. Yeah. So the first death on their side. So you kill the first one, you roll morale, see if they're still interested in fighting, and then again, if the side if they're half incapacitated. So if you basically um, like neutralized half of their guys, you re-roll their morale if they actually want to fight still, or if they're going to run away or something.
Yeah.
I think I would also allow a morale check if you kill the leader. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so here's your attack matrix. This is THAC0, basically. So THAC0 is just one number, right? It's the your attack roll and and the armor class, basically. Anyway, um, so that kind of gives some options there. So here's your retainers, people that you would hire to come with you down in the dungeons. You have to actually negotiate rates with them. And they actually have there's a retainer hiring reaction. They might not like your deal, and it all kind of depends on how it rolls. So, and you're if you have bad charisma, you're not going to be able to attract a lot of people to be on your party. And if you are, known to be, you know, mistreating retainers, you're probably going to have a hard time attracting retainers as well. Um, Anyway, I'm pretty sure I might have read that in here somewhere. I think that's definitely like an obvious role play part of the game, right? If you treat your retainers like garbage, no one else is going to want to work for you. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, but
no one's
it's
gonna want to work for a half orc.
yeah, and a half orc or something. But there is no half orc in the classic fantasy, right?
Not in the rules, no.
No, not yeah. That's advanced fantasy. That's in the other version of the game, basically.
And the
Um,
players tome.
yeah, that's what both of those are advanced fantasy. Um, yeah, well, and a retainer is not the only hired help you can get. There's other hired help you can get, mercenaries, but they're kind of more like guards, so they will guard a place for you. They don't come down in the dungeon with you. And also there's like specialists. So if you need to hire like a sage to do something for you, or maybe you need to hire a blacksmith, or those are specialists that will do different things for you. Animal trainers, right? So if you caught a interesting animal and you need them to be trained, like a dog. And the cool thing about this game is you can have a dog in the game that will be like a hunting dog in your party, and you can go down into dungeons with your dog. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
And so yeah, there's, like I said, a sage, or whatever, different specialists that you can hire. This is a really cool picture, by the way.
that is cool.
Yeah. All right, cool. Strongholds. So this is kind of what you're building up to. Like, why are you going down into those dungeons? It's because you're trying to make your fortune, right? You're trying to become somebody. You're trying to, you know, claw yourself out of poverty and dig up your way into, a comfortable life, just kind of like we always are anyway in life, right? But except things are much more rough in the world Dungeons and Dragons, right? So um, but essentially with all that gold that you get, there's a purpose for it, right? And I think that this gets lost on players that play 5e, because they're kind of like they don't know what to do with all their gold, right? And I think even with Shadow Dark, that new game, uh, there's even like a whole carousing thing where it's developed to like give players something to do with their gold. But really, like what you're doing is you're saving that gold to build yourself an empire. You're trying to, or like a stronghold, basically, not really an empire, but like, you're trying to build yourself up into, you know, a somebody. And so you're saving that up. You're probably going to put that money in a bank or something where it's going to be protected. I would have a banking system, well-developed banking system in my world if I were doing if I were DMing, by the way, um, because I just think that would be, of course, a feature that would come into existence in this type of a world. You would need a safe place to put your gold. And so, of course, there would be entrepreneurs that would exist to warehouse your gold for you for fee, and they would make a lot of money. And so,
Yeah,
banks would be very powerful um, in this type of world. But yeah, so anyway, there's a whole point to getting all that gold, and this is it, right? So this is what you're working up to. Um, and it gives you some insight on what you can be doing in that type of play, right? You're going to be maybe trying to tame wild lands, because you're now kind of new low level royalty or whatever, and you are trying to establish yourself. And yeah, so it even gives rules specifics about how much it costs to build your castle with whatever type of design you might have. So you can design your own castle and basically have the price tag all built out for you. And yeah, so that's pretty neat, huh?
Yeah.
You can be a little architect. And then
Yeah.
here's the monster man. Yeah, sorry, did you have something you want to say, buddy?
No.
Yeah, you could be your own Art Vandelay from Seinfeld, but you're too young for that reference. Um, all right, so here's the monster section. So there's a monster manual in the book. I kind of like having a separate monster manual, but it's fine. It's just a thing with me. I don't know. I like having a monster manual apart from the rules tome, but it's all together. Um, and yeah, so it kind of gives you a very condensed form of what the monster has. Like it's wastes no space at all, right? And it just tells you what you need to know, which is nice, because it's like, oh, okay, you don't want to have to read a big thing, right? You don't, because you don't need all that information. You can make it up as a DM. So make it up, make it your own. And yeah, and so you have all the info that you need right here. Now, of course, this is just the monsters that are going to be in the basic expert version of the game, right? So a lot of the monsters that you would find in advanced D&D, it's just not here. So that's a big ugly cyclops and a halfling is hiding. That's kind of fun. Crocodiles, that kind of thing. Look, and there's your hired help right there carrying your stuff. Yeah, so anyway,
Yep.
that's
Hope
pretty cool.
hope you can
Yeah.
pay them well, so they'll stick around.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, and they're trying to make a living too, right? So they're risking their neck just like you are, but you know. Um yeah. So I'm just gonna kind of make her way through here. Oops, someone got ate by a giant catfish. Catfish is tasty, but that's a big catfish.
Even more tasty.
Yeah. Gelatinous cube. That's like a really weird dungeon monster, but it's super classic. Um,
Yeah. It's one of the originals.
oh yeah. A goblin. I don't think I like that goblin too much, but whatever. It's not bad, I guess. Unless that's the golem, but I don't think so. Green slime. Oh, that's a pretty good picture. Anyway, um, oh yeah, killer bees, insect swarm. Oh man, giant leech,
Yeah.
lizard man. I haven't looked all the way through the classic fantasy because I've done most of my reading in the advanced fantasy. So some of these pictures I haven't really spent any time looking at. But this is really kind of an Egyptian kind of style. Lots of undead in it. So Neanderthal or cavemen as a monster race. That's an
Yeah.
interesting pictures of Nixies.
Did you know that Neanderthals were actually like really strong?
Yeah, yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't believe we don't believe in evolution, so I mean, I think they were just people, but very
Apparently to like
strong.
scientific evidence, it with like only like a few weeks of training, a female Neanderthal could take on a professional arm wrestler.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they were just they were some kind of a interesting strain of people. That's cool.
Yeah.
Probably they lived just after Noah's flood. Well, yeah, orcs, ogres. Oh, yeah, here's your black people right there. Oh man.
Orcs.
Yeah. See, to us, orcs are just orcs, man. They're bad guys. They're they don't represent any type of humans at all. They're monsters. They're meant to be killed. That's it. Oh man. Some people. It's ridiculous. It's interesting that you can fight rats in the game, but you totally can, or giant rats. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to get too bogged down. Yeah, so there's lots of cool monsters, but here's your scourge. It's kind of the mosquito thing, but yeah, it doesn't have everything, right? It doesn't have a lot of the stuff from uh, advanced D&D. Now, vampires are probably your most powerful foe that you can have in the game. They've just got so many abilities and stuff, and they're just really tough. A warp beast, that's your displacer beast. And it's an undead white. And then we were talking about this like encounter tables. Okay, so how do you know what kind of creature you can run into in level one of a dungeon, right? So if you're down in the first level, well, it's right here in this handy table. Level two, you're apt to find, these types of monsters, level three, and so on. So it's really handy tables here for encounters and wilderness as well. If you're in this type of terrain, then you're gonna likely find this type of monsters like that. So you kind of have all that you need for
Yeah.
building an adventure and finding those appropriate monsters for wandering monsters. Oh, I've never seen this before. Oh, that's really, really cool. I like that.
Yeah. It is cool art.
Yeah, and then NPC encounters. So you can kind of roll up you know, a quick NPC guy, which is great. This is really, really helpful. Maybe you want to, have a possible retainer or something, or you just want, just any NPC that your party meets.
Yeah.
So, some different notes about, if you have a high level cleric, you're meeting one, or, a fighter or a magic user, that sort of thing. More notes about strongholds. Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that's good art.
Yeah. And then here's your DM's guide section, um, some practical um, points about, running a good game, which is really helpful. Um, that guy's in trouble. Um, and yeah, this is kind of a weird picture. I don't know. It's like her outfit does not look medieval to me. Kind of looks like a cyberpunk genre or something. I don't know. Um, yeah, but anyway, this kind of gives you some tips of like, hey, here's some cool like scenarios you could run if you wanted. Like you contacted a lost civilization, or you're escaping from captivity, or you know what I mean? Like it's just some different adventure hooks that you could use. So, and then putting together a dungeon, I mean, gives you basically everything you would need to know to create your own dungeon. So it really is kind of everything all in one book.
Yeah.
Designing a town, how do you do that? It's all right here. Um, let's see, awarding XP. So if you create your own monster, how do you know how much XP to give? Well, this gives you rules, so you can go ahead and create your own monster and figure out how to how much experience points you're going to give for them. Because other than gold, you do get some experience points from fighting monsters, but not much. Not so much that it's worthwhile to try and fight them more than you have to. But you know, you still do get a nominal amount from fighting them. And then there's a whole section in the book about treasures because there's different treasure types that are associated with the monsters that you fight. So you're going to have different treasures, a possibility of treasures, and things like that according to what creature they are. So those are the treasure types, right? And there's also magic items and things like that that you can have. So, um, lots of interesting things in there. And it's all right here in the book. So it's a really good system. BX and Old School Essentials, it does an excellent job of putting it all together for you. Um, there's just if you're looking to play BX, there's no better way to do it, I think, than having Old School Essentials. It's all right here. So that frog looks retarded. Man, that's funny. Oh, it's polymorphed. Okay, so that was a guy that turned into a frog. Got it. All right. So magic rings, stuff like that. Um, Frodo Baggins, ring of invisibility. um, so yeah, so some cool stuff. This art is not really, I don't know. It doesn't quite seem like the right genre, but that's fine. And then different rods, staves, magic stuff, magic equipment. That's kind of what like um the whole back of the book is. There's a lot of magic items and things like that. This is kind of evocative of the cover page, actually, of the cover art. Same artist, and he has a homunculus as well. A wizard. Cool. And then there's a whole section about swords. You can have cursed swords, sentient swords, enchanted swords. A sentient sword, it has a personality, right? Um, you can have magic abilities, stuff like that. Extraordinary powers, sensory powers for your sword. So there's a whole section about your sword, right? So you can have a sword that is a magical sword that has its own consciousness, right? So there's a whole bunch of rules about that. This is great art, I think, because like I love these things coming out of the wall, and it's like coupled with this too, because they're like, "Ooh, look at this," and like they're all distracted, and he's like, "Whoa, hold on a second, this could be a trap," and on this other page, it's like they're coming out of the wall and stuff like that. So it's kind of evocative of you know, good dungeon crawl experience. And that's basically it. That is essentially old school essentials. A page through, a page flip through. So there's the Necronomicon and there's the you know, last cover. Thoughts, buddy?
It's a good book. Definitely worth a read, and definitely worth a buy, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this book runs you about 40 bucks. I mean, it's not cheap particularly, but it's a really nice hardcover. And it's awesome. I can't wait to play it, buddy. But you know, finding the time is a challenge. So you know how
Yeah.
busy I am. But anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed watching us. Flip through the book, and hope you've had fun drooling over it and listening to our banter. So, um, till next time, take care.